We are back on the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. We've got a special guest coming up, John Fina, former first-round pick and 10-year veteran of the Buffalo Bills, so he knows a thing or two about that squad and this huge game coming up here with the Bengals. Really big for both teams. The Bills are trying to keep chase with the resurgent New England Patriots atop that division, while the Bengals are just trying to win every game they can to maybe get in a division crown, however unlikely it may be, at 9-8 or maybe even 8-9. Who knows? But big game regardless. There's going to be weather. There's going to be star quarterbacks. There's going to be all kinds of things. I'm Anthony. He's John. And John, how are you, bud?
Doing well, man. I think the one thing that us and John Fina have in common is that neither one of us expected the Patriots to be this good and potentially, give both teams some issues. The Patriots have held the Bills to their lowest output in terms of points at home this year, with 20 points all the way back in week 5. But the Bills have been a wagon at home scoring. So when we're talking about this Bengals defense and how it's resurged, and maybe the team in general, that's when both teams are kind of meeting each other at an interesting point in the season. It's going to be really fun on Sunday. Did
you just use an old school Chris Bermanism using the wagons? Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. I still don't even know where that came from. I'll have to look that up, or maybe we'll ask John where that came from. We should be joined by him any moment now, but we're going to be talking and previewing this game. It is a big one, and of course, this is the Orange and Black Insider, part of the Believe BLEAV podcast network and the Believe in Cincy podcast channel. BLEAV in CINCY. I mean, if you need help spelling Cincy, just look at John's lid there, and you can figure that out. A slate of Bengals podcasts on there for you to enjoy. And we're available through all of the major audio streamers. Subscribe, give us a like, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. And if you like the video side of things, give us a like and subscribe. Helps our YouTube channel out. If you are watching through YouTube, we appreciate that. You can also catch it on a number of X accounts, as well as on the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. You can get your Bengals news, opinions, analysis, podcasts, all that stuff, not only on cincyjungle.com, but as well as A to Z Sports, where John is covering the Bengals there. Do you want to? You had a little announcement. Are you allowed to tease that? You told me in our pre-production meeting. Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to tease that? I don't want to step on corporate toes or anything, but I'm excited.
I think I can tease it a little bit. Nothing's official as of yet, but as you guys know, I do a lot of video content for A to Z Sports and A to Z Sports Cincinnati. We do weekly videos on the short form side on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And coming soon, hopefully, we're going to be starting like a weekly live stream type of situation going on, where it's like, I mean, I love this setup because I got Anthony kind of running the show, but in that case, it's just going to be me running the show, and I can take questions, chat you guys up on the latest what's going on, and do it from that side of the fence, if you will. So nothing's official. We have no dates yet or anything like that, but it's in the works. So keep a lookout on that when you stream or browse our content on A to Z Sports.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome. And then you can get your fill of both John and I together. John on his own, that sort of thing. And if you love us, we love you back. But anyway, that being said, this show is presented, of course, as always, by America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. and the fans only company FOCO. Both of those links are pinned in the show description, I think across all the streaming platforms at this point. So go look at placing your bets, obviously where applicable, and do so responsibly at America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. And if you want some exclusive Bengals merchandise just in time for the holidays, you still got a few weeks left here. You can go get some really cool stuff for the Bengals fans in your life in that description at FOCO, the fans only company. So go check those out. And our thanks to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and the fans only company, FOCO. Let's preview this while we wait on Mr. Fina to join us. Lot to get to here. I mean, we have the banner that says injury report, but I think we can also talk about the impending weather. We can talk about a lot of different stuff happening here. I know the great folks of the greater Cincinnati area have been experiencing some of the weather that may be expected in Buffalo this Sunday, but let's start with the injuries. John, can you catch us up on things? I know we talked about things on Monday where T. Higgins was expected to come back, Trey Hendrickson not expected to play, where things are at as we get later in the week here.
Yeah, so the Bengals are not as injured as the Buffalo Bills, according to their respective injury reports, and only one Bengal did not practice Wednesday, and the only practice so far as our recording, Trey Hendrickson, still out with the hip / pelvis / core muscle injury that has kept him out for well over a month now since he aggravated it against the Jets in week 8. But everyone else was practicing at least, and that's good news for both T. Higgins and Taj Brooks, who are still in the concussion clear the protocol in order to practice as a full participant, and their practice today is really like their last full practice of the week. So by the time that you're listening to this, maybe we already know their practice designation status, if you will. Maybe they went full today, maybe they remain limited. Regardless, I do think that both have a chance to play this Sunday. And that's pretty standard, like if a player suffers a concussion 2 weeks ago, like typically they're back after 2 weeks and missing a game, if not. So they're on track, and on normal track, if you will, through the protocol. Other than that, Shaka Hayward, who was cleared to practice earlier this week, he was a limited participant also with his fibula. He was out for the last month with the injury on IR. And right now the Bengals only have 4 linebackers on their active roster. So once Hayward does get healthy, whether or not that is this week or maybe next, I would imagine he gets cleared and returns to the active roster, which leads to another roster move. Everyone else was a full participant, though. Cam Sample was practicing full after missing the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Chase Brown is listed with a calf injury, which is something to note. I believe no, it wasn't a calf. He suffered an ankle injury last year, but Chase Brown isn't listed on the injury report, but he was a full participant, so nothing too concerning there. Jermaine Burton, who popped up with an ankle injury last week, obviously hasn't played at all this year, but Zach Taylor said he was week to week or just taking him week to week, but fortunately for him, he was back to practicing full on Wednesday.
Yeah, and Burton's been an enigma his whole career so far, his whole short career, but it's been a bit of a more recent mystery because there was like an illness that was reported for a couple of weeks and that sort of thing. So don't really know what's going on there, and or if we'll see him going forward. Of course, Tinsley, the big catch against the Patriots, kind of struggled a little bit the following week against the Ravens, but that's a guy that I think is building some trust regardless. So we'll see what the Bengals do at wide receiver with Burton kind of returning to practice and that sort of thing. As we mentioned, the weather is going to be pretty much what it sounds like it's been in your neck of the woods, John. It's supposed to be right around 31, possibly snowing throughout the game. And regardless, cold. I don't think there's going to be a ton of wind. I think it's at about 5 to 6 miles per hour. So on that regard, I don't know. I don't know if that plays into the Bengals corner. I don't know if it plays in the Bills corner. We've seen the Bengals, hate to use the pun, but weather that storm in the divisional round of the playoffs a couple of years ago and play very well against Buffalo. Obviously, a lot of things have changed with both teams since that game, but the 2-star quarterbacks remain despite the weather.
Yeah, it's looking like over the weekend there could be a chance of snow, very light snow. Obviously, weather can change in an instant, but I'm just speaking from an Ohio standard. I do not live next to a lake like the fine folks at Orchard Park, so they have that effect, if you will, dealing with that. So, no, we've seen this team, or we've seen this matchup play in a snowstorm before. The Bengals obviously had the edge back then in the playoffs in 2023. And right now, the Bengals are practicing outside. It is currently 32, 33 degrees in Cincinnati. It's probably going to be a little bit colder than that in the late or early afternoon of Buffalo or Orchard Park specifically. It's going to be cold. And that's just what it is this time of year. The Bengals have a history of great success in this weather, and it's typically an advantage for Buffalo around this time of year, but not necessarily when you're dealing with another team from this part of the country. So I don't expect the weather to necessarily be advantageous for either side. If it does get to be a point where like the snow is a lot more than you're expecting, Buffalo's run game is one of the best in the NFL, and that's where the Bengals made a lot of strides defensively over the last couple of weeks, which is like it seems like the best or most intriguing matchup in this game. James Cook and the Bills' offensive line just paved the way against opposing defenses. And in the snow, that's typically what you like to see. But I don't expect it to be like that. It's not going to be, LaShawn McCoy having fun in the snow in Philadelphia from like a decade ago. It's going to be some maybe light flurries in snow. And I think that is going to be fine for either quarterback, and especially for, Burrow, who's slinging it like he normally does. And Josh Allen, I mean, there's no hurricane that can slow down his fastball.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I know I was on a Buffalo radio show. I told John this before we took the air. I was on a Buffalo radio show yesterday in Rochester, New York, with Gene Battaglia and Mike Danger. I usually join them a couple times a year, which is a lot of fun. But during their injury, their little segment of updates right before I took the air with them, they talked about the Buffalo tackles. Obviously, they were both out, offensive tackles. They were both out last week. I think Deion Dawkins is trying to return from a concussion protocol, and so they that is an issue that they are definitely monitoring there. And to your point about the Bengals' run defense, John. And we could talk about this with kind of our thoughts about the game and stuff, but you're facing a somewhat similar quarterback, a much larger one, and maybe not as incredibly agile or quick as Lamar Jackson, but a guy who can definitely run the ball, move the pocket, do different things in Josh Allen. So like you said, the Bengals defensive line and linebackers played well against Lamar Jackson last week. It'll be interesting to see if they can kind of repeat that against a quarterback that likes to do some similar things to Lamar Jackson.
Right. And I think with Allen, he's always going to be ad-libbing in the face of pressure. And sometimes that leads to unfortunate outcomes for Buffalo. And sometimes it leads to like, oh, no, what are you doing? Oh, I guess that's a 40-yard completion down the field. It's like you just kind of live and die with the variance that Josh Allen plays with. And for a while, it was something that was mostly killing them. But now, of course, he's obviously an MVP caliber quarterback who's making more positive decisions than not, or his decisions are leading to more positive results than not. But that, of course, is how the Bengals defense can capitalize, and how they've been successful this year has been to make sure that you take advantage of the opportunities that you have when you have the chance to turn the ball over. With the offensive line specifically, it's what kind of made their game against the Steelers a lot more impressive, because they were down both their starting tackles, Spencer Brown at right tackle, like you said, Deion Dawkins at left tackle, and they were bowling over the Steelers defensive line. They were demoralizing them. And TJ Watt essentially said that they ran the same play like 20 something times. And it pretty much was just spamming inside zone to James Cook. And he was always having, backside lanes open up for him. And of course, Cook is a great runner with great vision and explosiveness, and he made the most of it. I think they broke the away game rushing record in team history that was last set by a guy named OJ Simpson. So yeah, it was quite the spectacle last week, despite the fact that 40% of their offensive line was down. And it just seems like that offense, it functions as long as Allen is capable of doing Josh Allen things, and they have some movement ability along the interior of that offensive line. They're going to be able to find a way to make it work. And fortunately for them, it seems like at least one other tackles is coming back. Concussions are obviously tricky, and the Bengals are dealing with that exact thing right now. But I think you can always assume that Josh Allen is going to play, and he's going to not just going to play. He's going to play with a taste or a smidge of recklessness, but is also going to lead to some fantastic plays. And that was the value of the Bengals defense whenever they went up against him with Lou and Rumo. How Al Golden, takes some of that formula and puts it to his own use with his increased blitz usage is going to be another big story of this game.
Let's see here. Jason Von Stein, a good friend of the show, said, I like this guest the last time he was on. Well, we've been informed that Mr. Fina had a little bit of a family emergency. He's still going to try and come back on. We may try and take the air later today. I don't know. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do some listener questions. We're going to do some reader questions, comments, and some headlines, that sort of thing. In the meantime, he still may join us for this episode. Otherwise, we may try and get another shot at him, and or maybe ask him some slate of questions and then put that out either on this show, Cincy Jungle, etc. But totally understand a family emergency, and I know he was excited to come on and apologetic about an issue. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he can come back on. Obviously, he needs to figure out his situation. We hope everything is okay at this point. But and we think I'm hopeful that it is, seeing as how he was proposing to come on later. But we'll see. He still may pop on here. But for now, let's go through some questions and whatnot, John, if you're okay with that. You can leave those in the live chats, and we'll talk about some different things going on here. Another good friend of the show, Ryan Yunt. What did you guys think about Darius Slay hitting a big pause on joining the Bills before having to face this team for a third time this season? In case you missed it, Slay was released by the Steelers. Former star cornerback, right? Very, very good player in his prime. Was released by the Steelers, was made or waived, I guess, because he was claimed on waivers by the Bills. And he has basically opted to retire, or is contemplating retirement, and has not shown up to Buffalo for this game. So what do you make of all of that, if anything?
So it is funny. Darius Slay, he played against the Bengals in week 7. He got picked on a lot by Joe Flacco. He was the guy in coverage against Andre Yosevich on that big 40-yard play. He did not play against the Bengals in week 11, week 12, and the one where the Steelers won. And he essentially mutually parted ways with the Steelers. And the reason why is because he may want to play with his former team of the Eagles again. So the Eagles tried to scoop him up on waivers. Of course, the Eagles have a better record than the Bills, so the Bills were higher up on the priority. The Bills are about to face potentially T. Higgins and Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow back there. They need all the help they can get in the secondary. Let's scoop up a veteran, former Pro Bowl quarterback. Now Darius Slay, oh no, I don't know if I want to keep playing. I don't know if it's specifically that he doesn't want to play against the Bengals. I think that's just like a funny way of doing it. I kind of think he wants to play for the Eagles, and this is like his way of being like, oh, I don't know if I want to continue playing. And then I guess they're gonna just, hold out until this all blows over, and then maybe can join the Eagles. I have no idea, but
so how does this do they rescind the waiver claim then if he says no, I'm not going to show up, and then he puts in a retirement? There's got to be a lot of steps to this.
Yeah.
And then he would have to unretire, take a physical if it was the Eagles, let's say, right? He would have to take a physical with them. I mean, if that, and that makes a lot of sense. You're dot connecting there. If that makes sense, if that happens, there's a lot of hoops that multiple people have to jump through for that to happen, right?
Yeah, I don't know how much time needs to pass in order for him to potentially get what he potentially wants, but all I know is he didn't want to go to the freezing cold of Buffalo, and I don't really blame him.
Yeah, especially this weekend here. So let's get to a couple of others. We're hoping to be joined by John Fina, former first-round pick and 2-time Super Bowl tackle with the Buffalo Bills. We'll see if he can join us. If not, we'll try and get a later interview. Again, he had a family emergency kind of come up, so keep him in your thoughts there. But there was another one. It's kind of a comment here from Jim Groh. Have to bring the pressure, meaning Josh Allen will pick you apart if you don't. There's always that fine line to walk, and I think the Bengals, as we talked about, brought more pressure on Jackson. And there's always, do you bring pressure and they scramble out of it and still make a play because they're great quarterbacks, they're athletic quarterbacks? Do you not bring pressure and hang everybody back and just kind of frustrate them with zone, but then you leave potential, you give them all the time in the world to make a throw, and or you leave maybe the middle part of the defense open and they can still gash you with their legs. There's always kind of the back and forth on this. I still am kind of with Jim on this too, not only based on what we saw last week, but I just think pressure for quarterbacks, regardless of how good they are, how heady they are, it just in general frustrates them. It rushes their internal clock. It forces them to potentially make a bad throw. It's a gamble a lot of times, but I still think that is probably the best way to go at this point.
Yeah, it's very much a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with Josh, because when he is pressured, he has tied for the 5th highest big time throw percentage. If you want to buy into those stats from Pro Football Focus, like when he sees pressure in his face, like something clicks in him and like, oh, I got to make some type of superhero play. He doesn't give up on plays necessarily. He doesn't just fall down and take a sack like Joe Flacco. He'll try to extend plays with his legs. He'll try to find someone downfield. And more times than not, like he's typically pretty successful with that. But also, again, that's when there are moments where like he just tries to do everything in his power to keep the play alive and get the ball down the field. And that's when you see some of the worst interceptions you've ever seen in your life. And that's still with him, 7, 8 years into his career. So he gets pressured about like as much as any other quarter. Like it pretty average in terms of like how much he gets pressured, and in terms of how many times those turns into mistakes, it's also about the same, right? But it just looks a little bit more spectacular when he is the one kind of in that situation. But yes, like when you're dealing with an embattled offensive line at the very least, with guys, dealing with injuries, and even if Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins do play, who knows if they'll be at 100%. This is a good week for a Bengals defensive line that's really starting to feel itself a little bit, with Myles Murphy, Joseph Ossai to press those edges, collapse the pocket as much as you possibly can, try to make Josh Allen be even more of a superhero than he normally is.
And it's also, I mean, I know we talked about, you joked that Josh Allen could throw the ball through a hurricane if he wanted to, that sort of thing. Between his throw power and his arm strength and Joe Burrow's accuracy, I mean, things are, if it's snowy, the football's wet, that sort of thing. I mean, that does play into some things a little bit, or can. And with a guy like Allen, if you're pressuring him, kind of frustrating him, maybe it's not so much an arm strength issue, but maybe a grip issue on the ball that could cause more errant throws if you pressure him in the right situations and frustrate him in the right ways if you're the Bengals.
100%. And like, again, like it's such a testament to what this defense and Lunaruma was able to do against him in the couple of times that they squared off, and how much they confused them and limited the offense in general. And it's what gave, the offense to kind of, play a normal game on their side of the ball. So that, again, like if you're Al Golden and you've just discovered how to blitz over the past couple of weeks, I don't know if that's the wisest decision in this game, because again, like when you sacrifice the second level of your defense like that to a quarterback that is so good at escaping pressure and so good at finding guys down the field, it may require a more of a conservative approach from a play calling perspective. And now that you have a little bit more confidence in your front four to generate pressure, that's something that I want to see him balance a little bit, instead of just consistently just spamming blitzes, because it has worked against other quarterbacks of late. But Josh Allen is different.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got a couple of questions about Burton. We talked about him a little bit with the injury issues, that sort of thing. I know our buddy Jason also asked a question about why hasn't he worked out, that sort of thing. I mean, I think the worked out portion is more about, he's not showing coaches the correct habits and certain off-field stuff, which we knew was kind of an issue when the team drafted him. But Trevor asked kind of a pointed question, is why is Burton still on the team? Why is he still around these guys? The best answer I can come up with at this point is injury insurance. Obviously pretty high draft capital, and he's only in his second year, manageable contract, those sort of things. But at some point, you either got to see what he can do or cut bait, right? I mean, he's not really doing any good at this point for the team, and they're not allowing him the opportunity to do good on the field, at least on game days.
Could be a situation in which the coaches don't want to use him and the front office or the personnel department doesn't want to release him now, or the whole thing about like why he was here in the first place, it very much seemed like a Zach Taylor type pick. And of course, Zach Taylor has complete control over not whether he plays. And if he's not playing, then it seems like his biggest advocate in the building just doesn't trust him. And that's of course the reason why he's not playing, right? Like there's a reason why Mitchell Tinsley, who was signed in February to the cheapest contract that a player of his experience can sign, and then worked his ass off the entire offseason into training camp, into preseason. The reason why he's out there starting and Burden is not even dressing for the games, right? Like they just have trust in the guys over Burden on the depth chart. And if Burden wasn't a third round pick, he probably wouldn't still be here because it would cost them some precious salary cap space to release him now instead of waiting until the offseason. So that it's just, I don't want to say politics, but there's other reasons other than just like, oh, if you're not going to use them, why aren't you releasing them? It goes a little bit deeper than that because all about this.
Yeah. And the other element, you brought up the word trust, and so did I. There's trust in, I think a lot of people look at that as, okay, practice the right way and do the right things and all that kind of stuff. But it's trust on the field. They may not trust him actually being out there and running the correct route, and it turns into a crucial interception, a turnover, that sort of thing. So I think that's multifaceted with Burton. Obviously, a very talented guy and a guy who, once things click, he can be a nice part of this offense. You would think, but hasn't gotten the opportunity, and maybe hasn't even earned the opportunity in the eyes of some. So we'll see what happens going forward. We're going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to talk about this game. Hopefully, former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman John Fina is going to still join us. We will see. He had kind of a family situation pop up at the very last second. We totally understand that, and we hope all is well there. But we'll try and figure out another way to talk to him if he can't hop on with us today or this afternoon here as we planned. But this is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast, part of the Believe Podcast Network, and brought to you in part by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook in the fans only company. I do want to ask you, just because there's a couple more questions that have been floating around here, John. One, I was kind of asked yesterday on the radio show, and I think a lot of people just kind of go, I don't really have a really good grasp on the answer, is why have the Bengals and Joe Burrow had a pretty, I mean, it's granted, it's what, 3 games or so, 3-4 games, but why have they had the recent success that they have had when the Bills are perennial contenders and the Bengals, whether it's on the road in the snow in the divisional round, whether it's at home at prime time, all those sort of things, they just kind of have the Bills number, knock on wood, going into this weekend. And I just said, I just think it's one of those things, as generic of an answer as I can give. The team's just, it's a matchup problem for the Bills. It's a matchup problem on particularly the wide receiver and secondary. The wide receivers and Joe Burrow, as simplistic and generic of an answer as it is, just give fits to this Buffalo defense. And you can go back to when Tyler Boyd was on this team and playing pretty well. They just knew exactly where to go, knew how to carve them up, knew where the soft spots in the defense were, and it just clicked. And now you have an offensive line, a Bengals offensive line, that is playing better than those units. And the players on this offensive line are vastly improved from that playoff game. I mean, you had Jackson Carman putting guys on skates in that game. So that's really the best answer. I mean, that question's kind of been floating around. That's really kind of the best answer I have, is just that it's a matchup issue for the Bills, particularly with the star offensive players that the Bengals employ.
You need good cornerbacks to stop this offense, plain and simple. That's why the Browns have such a good plan, or have such a good chance every single time that they play against them, to limit the offense as much as possible, because you need corners that can go up to the line, disrupt the timing of these routes, and get Burrow off schedule a little bit. And when that happens, he's not so willing to throw his passes into tight windows when guys are covered. And so that leads him to look at his secondary options because he can do that. But if you have a pass rush like a Myles Garrett that can collapse the pocket in a really quick time, that's when you lead. That's when you have the rare instances of this Bengals offense with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins all on the field. That's when you have those rare moments or those rare games in which nothing is clicking and the opposing offense can capitalize and outscore them. If you don't have the personnel to stop this offense with its top two receiving targets and to get Burrow and to rush him a little bit, then there's going to be it's just Burrow chasing Higgins. It's why it's so lethal. If you don't have the personnel to match up with their personnel, that's why the Bengals wanted to keep this trio together. So the Bills in recent years have not had the talent in the secondary, the talent of the cornerback position, or really the talent at pass rusher to do anything with that. And that's just why it's been a matchup nightmare. I do think the Bills, their pass rush this year has been improved. Part of that is with Joey Bosa. Like, I think he's been a really good signing for them. He leads the team in pressures, but he was a lot more productive as a pass rusher on the right side of the defensive line. And now he's probably going to be doubtful for this week. He's not been
I was just
practicing
going to
so
say,
far.
yeah.
But Greg Rousseau is still really good along the left edge. That's a good matchup to watch with Amarius Mims. They got two rookies in Deion Walker and TJ Sanders who can contribute as interior rushers. So I think the defensive line is in a good spot for the Bills. But if you're talking about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins versus Tre'Davious White and Christian Benford, you would take the Bengals receivers there. And that's why Burrow's going to have chances to find his two targets. And if they're covered, then he's got other options over the middle. Like, you just remember the times in which Burrow in this offense has been flustered. And it's when his top two targets have been at least somewhat neutralized in coverage. When that doesn't happen, though, like, Burrow's going to have time to find them, and that's just going to lead to points.
Yeah. And this also plays into why the Bengals rested. And granted, he may not have been ready regardless, but why T. Higgins was rested on a short week to particularly come back for this matchup, have all of them back ready to go. So that's the best answer I can come up with that one. We're going to preview this thing, and we'll see. We're going to be here a little bit longer. We'll see if John Fina shows up. I know he's got some stuff going on, totally understandable. But we'll see what happens. As I mentioned, FanDuel, one of our sponsors, this line has kind of crept in different directions. But now Bills are 5.5 home favorites. I think that's where it was early in the week, but obviously all kinds of different things play into that. How are you feeling late in the week with that line? Fair, not fair? What do you think?
I still think there's value there with the Bengals because, Burrow is not used to being underdog and an underdog of this magnitude at this point in the season. And I don't even look at the history with these teams because, again, I think that history kind of goes out the window when you're talking about a different Bengals defense and how there's an unknown about how they're going to do against one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL and a quarterback that can still sling it. So I still look at this game as one that can go back and forth with points all over the board, but it's very rare to see Burrow lose by more than one possession when he's got his two guys on the outside at this stage of the season.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at with this one. There are questions, right? I think Burrow, for the most part, answered the rust questions in the second half of the game Thanksgiving. You hope that momentum continues here. The other is fool's gold with the defense, or are they making strides and improving? I know there were some other comments about, is Al Golden going to break out even more stuff this week against Josh Allen? Who knows? But those are kind of the lingering questions for me in this one. And we mentioned, can the linebackers, can the defensive line frustrate Josh Allen as they did Lamar Jackson last week? Obviously, the Bengals get that mini bye, so that helps things as well. But tough game, tough atmosphere, all that good stuff. I think this is one of the final games at that Orchard Stadium, right? Before the Bills get their new one. So, obviously the fans will be hungry and that sort of thing. I see this kind of going two different ways in terms of an end result. I see it being either a close field goal win for the Bills or like maybe a touchdown plus win for the Bengals, where it's been a little bit more like, I don't want to say as dominant as that playoff win, but I mean, even that uh, unfortunate game with Damar Hamlin, the Bengals were having their way in that one before that one was cut short. So the trends are there. The December trends with Joe Burrow and the Bengals are there. They seem to respond well with the backs against the wall. For me right now, it's still a tiny question about rust with Joe Burrow because of the extended time off, but I think he answered a lot of those questions last week, and I trust him more than this defensive unit to continue their momentum. But that is a question for me, the big question, the defensive momentum.
100%. You have a resurging front seven that's been better at tackling, some better collapsing towards the ball carrier against an offensive line and a rushing attack that should rightfully be feeling themselves after the week they just had. I think the Bills care more about how the past two games against the Bengals have gone compared to the vice versa, whereas the Bengals are just focused on keeping their season alive. And that's an interesting contrast of mentalities entering this game as well. You have a revenge aspect for the Bills, but you also have just a desperation aspect for the Bengals. Typically, when the Bengals are desperate, I lean towards them. And when you consider just the matchups in this game, the fact that I just don't think that the Bills have the secondary to frustrate Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, assuming T. Higgins does play. I would assume that he's on track to doing so. If he doesn't play, it does lead to a question of this game being a lot closer than I'm imagining, a lot closer, being like maybe another like 4 points or so. But I'm gonna say the Bengals. I'm gonna say the Bengals win by a touchdown here, and it's not because I think they're gonna have a perfect game necessarily. I think it could be very reminiscent of their 2023 matchup. I think that was like 23-14 or 16 or something like that. But no, like I see it being like a 30-24 type game for the Bengals.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm heading as well. As odd enough, I mean, as down as we were on this team, this defense, etc. The past, just a few weeks ago, 1 week in the return of your franchise quarterback means that much. And like you said, just the state of the team, and they just seem to play with their hair on fire when it's like, hey, you think they're just almost out of it. They're just almost out of it. And somehow they just kind of start rattling off wins. I will say this. Let's just say beyond the Bills game, let's say they win the Bills game. Let's say they even win out, right? 9-8. They, if they were to win a Super Bowl, that would take, what is that? 9 straight wins, 10 straight wins that they would need to achieve in order to do that at this point. That's a heavy ask, but I know obviously it's one game at a time. I just had that thought yesterday. I'm like, man, if let's just say they were to win a Super Bowl, it would take an epic winning streak that I don't know that many of us have seen before.
You heard it here first. Bills win.
Yeah. All right, bud. Well, I think we're going to try and get John Fina maybe later today or later this week. I don't know. He's also traveling. He's calling the ACC championship game between University of Virginia and who is it? UNC? I can't remember who he said, but so he's got a travel day tomorrow. We'll see if we can catch him. Apologies to our listeners. We had it dialed in, but we understand things come up, and this sounded like a emergency family situation, and we completely understand that and hope all is well. But we're going to continue bringing you content here on the Orange and Black Insider and the other shows on the Believe in Cincy podcast channel. John, let's drop the mic and get out of here. What do you got for us on the way out of the door?
So I thought it was pretty cool that Burrow kind of dived into the cleat that he's wearing now. It's like a different, I think it's still like a Jordan type of shoe. He always wore like the Air Force Ones, but now he's got like a different sort of shoe, and it's made out of like carbon steel fiber, something like that. And the whole reason why is because he can't bend his toe backwards. And I've been just naturally just doing that like ever since I heard that. I'm like, if I couldn't do this, it would annoy the crap out of me. And the fact that that shoe just keeps the toe in place it explains why when you start throwing for the first time in like an actual in-game situation, I understand why his footwork was a little wonky, because just to not have that normal flexibility in one of your toes is in one of your big toes, if you will, is very odd and bizarre. And it's just a testament to the fact that he's not 100% healthy, and that toe may not have its full range of flexibility for a while now, but he's playing through it. And shout out to the group of people and the experts that crafted that shoe and was able to get him out there.
Yeah, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm definitely wearing it the rest of the season." And he said he may need to wear it for as long as he plays.
Yeah.
I think is how he expanded on that, which is like, oh, okay. And he said it's like not very comfortable, but it is what it is. And obviously, that's one game, a handful of practices, that sort of thing. I'm sure he will get used to it as more time goes on, but it does not seem like a comfortable apparatus in that shoe, to say the least. A couple of things. Number one, a hearty congratulations to Ken Anderson, who got whittled down to the 5 senior list of the Senior Hall of Fame candidates. They can take a maximum of 3 of the 5 that he has been narrowed down to. John, there are some pretty big names on there. Belichick's on there, Robert Kraft's on there, Roger Craig is on there, as well as L.C. Greenwood. I would say if I had my 3, if they took up to 3, it would be Anderson, it would be L.C. Greenwood, and it would be Belichick. Those would be the 3 senior candidates I think I would take. I don't know if you disagree with that or not, but that's at least I know. And Roger Craig is like right there, but yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is that like at least one of them has to go in if no one gets like above 80% of like the voting, and I think that was the case last year when Sterling Sharp got in. But yeah, this is his 3rd time as a finalist. Selfishly, it stinks that he's going up against Bill Belichick and Bob Kraft, for God's sake. But like it's time, man. It's time. It's time to get these guys in before it's too late. And like he's bided enough of his time. I think the case for him has been laid out so perfectly cleanly. Everyone knows that he was the most accurate quarterback, or one of the most accurate quarterbacks of his time, and that accuracy stands the test of time. The MVP, the Super Bowl appearance, like everything about it, man. Just like he deserves to be in as a senior finalist. Just get him in.
Yeah, just get him in. Well, everybody, get your shopping done. We'll let you know if we can get John Fina back on the program. Go back though. We did have him on. When was that, John? Like August, I think. So it was right around training camp kickoffs. Really fun chat, and we did preview this game with him back then. So go back in our archives, be it video or otherwise, and you can get a little bit of a taste of what we were talking about at that point. But we'll hope to have him back on. Apologies for the mix-up there, but we had fun answering some questions and chatting about this game, previewing it. John, you're the best, man. And all of you, we love you. Take care. Go to the Believe in Cincy podcast channel. Go to cincyjungle.com. Go to A to Z Sports Cincinnati. And, of course, we'll see you. Let's hope the Bengals are 5-8 the next time we see you, if not sooner. Take care, everyone.